Hey guys, George Palau. Today I want to talk about somebody's always watching you. And when you hear that, you think about, smartphone and social media today, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the two cameras that are always on you, which is your eyeballs. You're always watching yourself, and it's so important for your spirit to be proud of the person that you are. Any incongruency in your life will produce a form of insecurity, uncertainty, and then that creates chaos. That creates anxiety. That creates people you feeling like you need to hide something in your life. That creates different versions of you. You know, there was single George, there was George with family. There was so many different versions of George. I'd go sin Monday through Saturday and Sunday ask God for forgiveness. You know, when you're a young guy, you're being introduced to weed, pornography, partying, clubbing, hooking up. And I grew up in a very restrictive home. My dad was a great dad, great mom, and so very sheltered. But the challenge with that is you're like, man, I need to go explore. And then you go from 0 to 100. You know, and there's habits that you pick up that are not good habits. And for me, I don't like smoking weed, but some people it's weed. I love to have a glass of wine or 2 glasses of wine when I go home. And for me, that's more of my outlet, right? But also that can become an addiction and, bad habits. And you start just saying, man, am I the same person all the time? Are there things about me that I hide? And I wanted to change those things. I really did. And so I'm making this video, and in every video that we produce, the outcome is for it to help somebody. Otherwise, there's no purpose to this. And so in being vulnerable, right, and sharing challenges that I had, there was things as a husband, right? I'll give you now as a husband, from a person that went through relationships that didn't work out, that did not work out, I'm sorry, to the most amazing human being in the world, my wife today. I love this person so much that I wanted to be a better version of me to honor my marriage. And, I've been through a lot of different relationships in my past. And I told my wife that when we got together. And I said, man, you know what? When you do that, the challenge when you're in a lot of relationships, it produces a habit, right? And it produces, especially for guys, there's a challenge that most men have with lust. And I said, I honestly don't want to struggle with that anymore. And it was when I met my wife, and I said, man, you know what? I want to honor my marriage. And that was a level of maturity that I think it's a process that you go through. I go through. I don't think it's overnight. And I said, there's nothing that I want to do in the dark that I wouldn't be okay with showing somebody. There's intimacy and, marriage, and that's completely different. But outside of that, there's not one aspect of my life that I want to hide. And there's not one aspect of my life where I say, man, I really want to be this person here, but I can't be that person over there. Why? It's either that person won't accept you or there's something that you're not proud of, right? And I started thinking about this differently. And I said, okay, you think about like pornography. For a lot of guys, they struggle with that. There's an article that I read every day called All Pro Dad, and it talks about how a lot of men struggle with that. And you're looking for that dopamine release in a lot of different things: food, drugs, alcohol, sex. There's so many negative ways of finding that versus like working out and achievement and self-respect and personal growth. And that takes more work. And so a lot of people just want that shortcut. And so I said, man, do I ever want my son to see me lusting over somebody else outside of his mother? And no, I don't want to introduce that. I want to raise men that they don't see that, because in the culture that I grew up in and just people around, man, the more you're with people, the bigger the number of the people that you've been with, oh, that's awesome, bro. I've been, and it's like that introduces a lot of pain down the road when you're trying to be a great husband and honor your marriage. That shit is not okay. And it's a culture. I want to eliminate creating a bad habit that my kids have to overcome. My boys have to overcome. And it's work. It's real work. You have to make that conscious decision, And I never want my wife to, hey, what do you do? Am I not enough? Like that concept. And then you think about it and you're like, man, I would never want to see my mom or my sister or my daughter, but that's somebody's mom, sister, and daughter. What I'm trying to do in this video is to create a paradigm shift for you so that you can get free of maybe many or any vices that you have and look at it from a different perspective. I wanted to honor my faith. So I wanted to, I didn't want to sin secretly and at the same time go to church and, thank you, God. Like, I want God to be able to see my heart, my soul, and know my mind, and to say, man, who you are on the outside is who you are on the inside. That's been my greatest challenge, and probably my greatest accomplishment in life is getting who I think I should be and want to be and who I am to come closer together to be the same person. And it requires a different way of thinking. Maybe yours is food, and you're like, you have an addiction to food. I wanted my son, and I'm not where I want to be. We're in the process of transformation right now and working out. But I wanted my son to see what a great man, a physical man looks like, a strong man looks like. Because, in our culture, Hispanic, you eat, it's okay. Hey, you know what? I'm not fat. You're not fat. You're healthy, baby. No, you're healthy. No, I'm fat, okay? This is not healthy. I wanted to change that. I want my wife to not just say, man, I love you because you're my husband and I love the way you look. No. I want that sexual attraction to say, damn, that's my husband. I want my wife to feel that. I want to feel that about my wife. I want our kids to see that I want to have that energy. So there's a lot of reasons that I've worked on making these people the same. And it requires you being vulnerable. It requires you being authentic. It requires you being congruent with who you're supposed to be and what you want to be and what you're doing. And I know that there's people right now. I guarantee, I would bet everything I have that there's people that have an idea of who they want to be, but behind the scenes are somebody different. And I want to tell you that you're not alone. I want to tell you that, that's the journey that I believe all great men and women are on. In our business, we talk about 4 Gs, greed, gambling, gluttony, and grills, that most great men fall because of one of those vices. For women, it could be greed, gambling, gluttony, or guys, and maybe there's an area of your life that you're not proud of. The fact that you see that and that you repeat that produces insecurity inside of you. That produces anxiety inside of you because there's incongruency. And some people are not aware of that because they're lacking awareness right now. They don't want to be aware. I also understand there's people that are aware that turn that off because they just don't want to hear that. I love what my pastor said the other day. He says, the devil doesn't need to get people to forget, not believe in God. He just needs to get people to forget there is a God. So there's a lot of people that don't want to hear that there's God. Why? Because it produces accountability. Because if you don't believe that there's a God, then you can be your own God and you can do whatever pleases you. If you believe that there's an actual God, then there's a sense of accountability and there's rules and there's direction. And, God doesn't want necessarily you to be obedient, like your sacrifices. He wants obedient. He wants your heart. He wants to transform your heart. And I know how many times I get angry at people and I'm internally angry. I want to transform that. That in itself is another version of George that I can't be. And I think about, do I communicate authentically with people when there's a challenge? Do I really share my opinion? Or do I not say what I'm really thinking, seek to please people, and then go vent somewhere else externally? And I've done that. Okay. And then, man, I can't believe that. That's 2 different versions of that person. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be respectful. And that requires, believe it or not, that requires you to grow in the way that you communicate, which requires you to think how to handle and process situations more so that you can be yourself, be direct, maybe push back, but in a respectful fashion. And you will build more self-respect, again, because you're being authentic. And too many people are here to please people. That's another reason that people are inconsistent with themselves, right? Because they want to please people, but they really don't care to please people. So then why are you doing it? Do you want that acceptance? Why does that matter to you? These are the things that people need to ask themselves. At one point, I said, man, I'm going to give my very best to everything and anybody, and I'm going to be the best version of me, but I'm going to be one version of me. And if you don't like that version, that's totally your choice, and I respect that. But I'm not going to be somebody that you want me to be for us to have a relationship that's not really who I am. And I think that there's a lot of those relationships in the world. And life is so short. and we care so much about what other people think. Even in doing this video, nobody wants to talk about these things. Nobody does, right? And everybody likes to judge people. If all of your mistakes in life were broadcasted for the world to see, people probably wouldn't be friends with you or in a relationship with you, because we've all made so many mistakes. I know I have. Things that I'm ashamed of, things that I'm super guilt. And I thank God for grace. I used to use it as like, well, God will forgive me, so it's all good. God's going to forgive me. That was an immature faith that I had. When you love God, when you love somebody, when you love a woman or a man, you love your spouse, you want to change and transform because you love that person, not because you have to. See, I think when you go from I have to change for somebody, or I have to do something for somebody, or I have to be somebody for somebody, you're never really yourself. And so, I'm on a journey in life. I'm 37 years old. I'm on a journey in life to be one version of George. And that one version, where those two cameras are watching him, I want to be proud of the person that I'm watching. And I think you do too. So I want to challenge you. Be one version and be who you really want to be, that you'll be proud to be. Take care, guys.